Hello, this is Greg. Today I was going to show you how I solder. Doesn't mean it's the only way to solder, but I've been soldering since probably around 1990, and this is the way I do it. I tend to use solder with flux in it. I don't use flux separately like a lot of people want to do. I've never really had much luck with it. The only time I ever seem to use a rosin or anything separate from my solder is when I have a really old component and that's the only way it's going to solder. And so then I will use some rosin flux with it. Otherwise, I just use a 60-40 solder. It seems to work really well. The lead-free stuff, I haven't really liked all that much. I know when you get to places out of the United States, they like to have, you know, stuff soldered with that. You just need a higher temperature. As far as your soldering iron, I feel like if you get any good Weller or something along that lines, you're going to do well. A lot of the times I see the reason people fail at soldering is because their irons are not hot enough. And just a little side note of something that kind of bothers me. There's soldering irons, which tend to look like pencils or kind of long and skinny, and there's soldering guns. Guns are meant for if you need to solder to a chassis of something, maybe the back of a pot, something that you got to get really hot, you can solder with a gun. Where irons are meant for all the little meticulous soldering that you would do. It's just a pet peeve, people calling irons guns. First thing you want to do is bend your component and get it in place properly so you can solder. I like to use this gold thing for cleaning my tips. I don't know what it's officially called, but I'll put a link down below, but it works better than a sponge or any of the things that I've tried in the past. After the tip's clean, I tend to add a little solder to the tip, and then I put them both down in the spot I want to solder and let it melt together. And once you have a good puddle, that's what you're looking for. So when adding like a wire to something like a terminal strip like this, I tin the wire first, and then I tin the spot, and then I melt them together, creating a great connection, as you can see. When I'm doing a pot, I do the same thing. I tin the wire, then I'll tin the spot on the pot that I want to connect to, and then I melt them together in a way that it melts the whole thing and is very solid. So there's all different types of tips, as you can see. I tend to like the ones that are kind of like a flat head screwdriver more. This kind right here is really my least favorite of all of them. There's not a lot of surface area to get stuff hot. I like that little one right there. That works pretty well. But I like it when it's flat on both sides like this one. This is kind of my favorite, and if you need a fine point, you just go to one of the corners. But you just got to try out what works for you the best, and I suggest getting a few different tips and trying them. Well, now you've seen how I do it. The only way to get better at soldering is just practicing. So, and you know, watch other videos because everyone has their own technique of how they do it. I tend to not heat up components because I feel like they'll have higher failure rates. So I tend to work with the solder and the soldering iron together as opposed to heating up components and then, you know, smashing them together. If you like my channel, go ahead and subscribe to it. I have lots of tech tips along with pedal demos, and I'll continue bringing content, so make sure you hit the like button. Thanks.